adapt or tweak existing music that's in the archive. I think for me, why do we do that? And in what way am I just trying to find my own voice in the archive? And practically, what can I do? What have I done in my practice? Because that's what this is about. It's kind of a bit about unpicking what I've done and me hoping that that's useful to you. But what have I done in my practice, especially as part of the Full English Band, so making performance pieces as a singer of this material and other stuff. So what are the boundaries of the sort of adaptation? What can we take from what we already know about traditional music and our own musical personalities? What can we take from that to affect the music so that it becomes ours and it kind of lives on? So that's the sort of adaptation part of it that I'm going to start with. Also, if you've looked through not just the Full English, but any real, any folk archive like this, you'll find things not only that don't necessarily fit in your voice or your mouth or your personality, but that don't look finished or complete, or that didn't make it through history with all their bits intact. So how do we put things back in, or how do we create things like new tunes for old sets of words? That's kind of the middle part for me, the sort of bouncing off from the tradition into composition of our own. And the way that I describe it is that for me, the folk tradition and doing these tweaks and making these adaptations, that was my songwriting apprenticeship, if you like. So eventually I had made enough new bits for songs, or adapted enough things, or tweaked enough things that I felt that I was sort of match fit, and the next logical step was to just make a brand new song. But of course for me, that doesn't come out of nowhere either. That comes from somewhere, and that's informed by the fact that I'm a folk singer, and that I have this folk music kind of swimming around in my head. So again, the last bit of it really is bouncing off from the tradition, using some of those voices, some of those things that we find in folk song to make brand new pieces. And how the folk tradition and how something like the Full English might help or hinder, actually, what we might use from that, or what might not be useful when we're making a brand new song. So the idea today is, like I say, kind of two parts really. One is me unpicking a bit of what I've done and singing you some stuff and maybe getting some of your feelings about that and taking questions on that. But we're also, at one point, around the middle of the session, we're going to do a writing exercise. And it's actually a pretty standard kind of speed songwriting exercise, which first of all generates some material for you to work with that's yours, and then makes a song from that. And that is something I've done quite a lot before, but I'm linking it now, today I'm linking it to the archive in a slightly different way. I'm going to introduce you to a song, and actually it might be nice to do some singing. So I went into the Full English archive. It sounds like that game, doesn't it? And I got an angry ballad. We were talking yesterday in the Q&A about Full English. I think many of us have an agenda, when we go looking for things like folk song, and I had a number of things that I wanted to explore in the Full English archive. I wanted to look at what the female collectors had done, because I felt they were a slightly quieter voice in that particular bit of the sort of early, that kind of folk revival at the turn of the century. So I went looking for what female collectors had found, and I went looking for versions of songs that I didn't recognise, but I knew another version of the song, and songs that I didn't know had multiple versions. So I assume you're kind of au fait with this, but one song will appear in usually many different flavours, sounds, different takes on the story, and that's kind of what we've got. We've got this, these archetypal stories, or these perhaps true stories that get told in different voices. So you have these different versions that crop up. And I think that's fascinating and wonderful, and there's something there about the universality of certain themes, but the fact that everyone has their own way to tell it. So I went looking for, a song I know, but I only know one version, so where are the other versions? Are there any other versions of that? So they were my sort of two agendas. So I'm going to take you through what I did with a song called The Seeds of Love. So The Seeds of Love is, which you may know, to me, growing up, The Seeds of Love was a kind of hymn-like, very archetypal. I mean, I don't like to put national things around it, but it does have this sort of, for me, a kind of Englishness to it that was interesting. I think tied up with the sort of mythology around the collection of the Seeds of Love by Cecil Sharp. It was apparently the first song that he heard, you know, in the Vicarage Garden down in Somerset. He kind of hears John England, whatever, planting the leeks and wafting over the sort of Somerset levels comes this song, The Seeds of Love. It's all hopelessly romantic and also probably not actually true at all, like many of their stories. Pardon?
I love the fact that there it is in the Vicar's Garden, but it's snot.
I know, it's disgusting. It's a really, really wonderful song as well. I know. Well, we'll get to that in a minute, yeah. But I mean, the mythology of the collection of it, which is all about sort of rural this and blah. But you're right, it's a very earthy song in every sense. So I had a lot of that resonance, I suppose. So I went looking for other versions of it, and I found several. But the one that I really fell in love with is collected by Ella Mary Leather in Herefordshire. Not long after that, actually. So what to say about it? I might pass around a version of it as it looks in the archive. I haven't done any PowerPoint at all, because I find it really, really difficult to manage while I'm sort of talking and you know, kind of reacting and creating and stuff. But I will just pass these around. Here we go. So here are 3 bits of the Seeds of Love as they appear in the Full English collection. One looks very much like a broadside version of it. So as you'll have looked through the archive, you sometimes you get this, you get your woodcut and you get your words, and that's your lot. So it's kind of frozen in that particular frame. I mean, do you want to pass these around and have a closer look?
Did you just put in search, Seeds of Love?
I did, that's all I did, not a place or anything. Now then, what else did I do? So you go to VWML, is that right? VWML.org, you go to your Full English, you go to your search, you make sure that you've checked Full English in all the things that you can check, and then you do your advanced search. So I put Seeds of Love. Now, what I'm trying to remember is if I put a collector in, but no, I didn't, because although I was looking for a female collector, I didn't know which one I was looking for. So I looked at Seeds of Love, and then I looked at all the collectors' names and waited until the female collector's name came up. Does that make sense? So again, I'm following my own little path. What else have I got here? I've got a couple of pieces of Alfred Williams's collecting of the Seeds of Love. So these are different sets of words to that broadside version, and these are typed, but also sort of annotated. One's called I Once Had Plenty of Time, as in time alone, which is obviously, I think, connected to Seeds of Love, and then there's a version of the Seeds of Love underneath, so you can have a look at that if you want. And then we'll come to this in a minute, and I want this back, but this is Ella Mary Leather, who was the female collector that I suddenly became very interested in finding out what she'd done on this song. Collected in England, in Herefordshire. Is it Webley? Weebly? Wobbly? Do you know how to say that? Webley. It's Webley. Weebly, yeah. Weebly. Is it? Oh, gorgeous. Good to know. Thank you. Collected in July 1906, and this is her handwriting. This is the bit of the Full English that I get shivers from. It's people's written music. I don't know why, I'm not even a very good reader of music, but I get excited by that. It's the ink on the paper and the notes coming out, the singer's mouth and ending up there, ending up on my screen. I love that. Have a look at that if you'd like, or to pass that around. So you can maybe get a sense, can you, of how I'm collating things already. So I've got the words that Ella Mary Leather collected, and I've got the tune, so I have a whole thing. I could just go with that if I wanted to, but because I'm looking at something broader, I'm wanting to cherry pick, you know, bits that mean something to me. So those are some of the sources that I kind of bring together. And I don't know if you do this, but so eventually I start to piece together some of my favourite ways of telling the story from those multiple sources. So lyrically, you know, obviously there's things that, some ways of saying things, but and I don't know if you find this, but yes, it happens on paper. I would be being overly romantic and mystical if I said I wrote everything in my head. I sit at the laptop and I write things and I scribble things down. But as a singer, it's when the song has its time to occupy not just my brain but my voice. I walk around, I sing it, I try different bits of it, I try it in an oral space, and for me that's when the song starts to make the most sense, because it's functioning in the, within the boundaries of where I want it to function. So I don't know if you find that, but if you're not doing that as part of your, making the songs your own, remember the oral place for it. Remember it has got to be sung and singable. It sounds obvious, but I can sit for ages doing this, and the words can look great. They can seem right, and then I step away and I don't even look at it, and I walk and I sing the song, and different things happen. So that's part of that lovely editing. I think of it as sort of fast-tracking the oral process, if you like. I mean, it isn't, because part of the oral process is different people's take on it, but just me on my own as a writer, as an adapter. I'm kind of fast-tracking that thing, getting off the page and back into the sung space. So I think I've made that point pretty obviously. So I'm going to look at that piece of the tune. Has someone got the tune? You got it at the moment, Mike. Can I just grab it from one moment? What I wanted to do was take it away from the lyrical for the moment and go into the musical kind of vein. So this is one of the things that I did, first of all, with Seeds of Love, when I kind of got it sung. And this is my example of, so taking what I knew already about the song, because I have a relationship with this song, because I grew up singing the Cecil Sharp version of the Seeds of Love from Somerset. So what can I take from that to bring into this? So I'm taking, if it makes sense, I'm taking something from what lives in my head musically. So again, from the oral space of music, I'm taking from that to try and lift this off the page, because as far as I'm concerned, this is, I love it, I love that it's written down, but I am not a fluent reader, and it doesn't exist yet for me like that, so I can't hear it. So, for me, it's about bridging the gap between the written and the oral spaces. So I might just sing you'll know this version, but the Seeds of Love version that I knew already went, I sowed the seeds of love, and I sowed them in the spring. I gathered them up in the morning so soon, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing. Does that ring a bell to some people? I think it's a beautiful sort of stately kind of sound, and yeah, I grew up hearing that, and so I'm thinking of some of the aspects of that I can put into this, although this is a different tune. So as it's written, it goes, this Herefordshire version. I sowed the seeds of love, it was all in the spring, in April, May and June likewise, while small birds they did sing, while small birds they did sing. Which I really liked, and it's really beautiful. I'll sing it one more time. This is, like I say, I'm not a brilliant reader, but that's sort of how it's expressed. I sowed the seeds of love, 'twas early in the spring. 'Twas in April, May and June likewise, and the small birds they did sing, and the small birds they did sing. So I sang that a few times to myself, started to get a few bits into it. But one of the things that I took from the version that I knew, so I didn't change anything about the makeup of the tune, but the version I knew has a lot of, well, I would call it melismatic sound. Does that make sense? So the idea is that you've got, for one vowel sound, say, you have more than one note, so you have changes within the vowel sound. And it gives, for me, it gives you that lovely, stately but kind of romantic, so it never kind of interrupts the flow of the story, but it gives, apart from anything, it gives the singer something to do. It gives some ornament to the song, and it gives some sort of swoop. All these sort of subjective things that I think about music is added to that. So the melisma in the Somerset version goes, I sowed the seeds of love, that's pretty straight, and I sowed them in the spring, so the has two notes. I gathered them up in the, up has two, up in the morning so soon, da 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 dee da da. This is sort of, for me, a lilting kind of slurred feeling to it. While small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing, la dum da dum da da. Does that make sense? You have those multiple, not many, but just two there, two notes in one vowel sound. So to me, there isn't any of that really in this written version. So I decided to put some in. So I changed it, so it now goes the way I sing it. I sowed the seeds of love, it was all in the spring. It's a tiny change. It isn't how it's written, but it's how, and I'm being much more cerebral about it than I was in reality when I made it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm looking back now going, oh yeah, you did the melisma. At the time I'm not going, I'm going to do the melisma now. I'm going, how can I make it swing and sing? So that's changed from "'twas early in the spring." I now sing, "It was all in the spring." Again, I'm borrowing some of the phrases as well, lyrically, from the other version that I knew, because it feels right in my mouth. It might not in others. Then the written one goes, in April, May and June likewise. I mean, that's lovely. It's spare and it's beautiful and it's straight. But when I sing it now, it goes, "'Twas in April, May and in June likewise, June likewise." Again, borrowing from that idea from the other one. I think I'm making myself clear, I'm sort of going over it. While small birds they did sing, while small birds they did sing. It's still the exact notes, but they have occasional little flowing on bits. They're just given a little bit more. Yes, no, Mike.
What about that assertion which I've heard? English folk music didn't have the melisma, it was straight.
It's too early for me to say rude words, isn't it?
Well, it has been said, hasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know why it's been said. Do you want to hear something?
I mean, on any wax cylinders that I've ever heard, singers did that. You know, they put it in, they put various...
Joseph Taylor, it was on the 5th of August. He doesn't just melisma, he decorates the melisma. He's going, look at the melisma. So I could never subscribe to that, I'm afraid. I mean, it's so difficult, isn't it? We mustn't talk we can't talk objectively about music, and people, I actually believe we hear things differently the more I discuss. So for some people, that is what they hear.
As long as it doesn't go to Whitney Houston.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. I think that's right.
But the Nightingale probably does.
Say again, sorry.
The Nightingale, the sweet Nightingale, that's all.
Yes, it's all melisma, isn't it? It's like one word.
I didn't know that's what it was called, so thank you for that.
I think that's right. Melismatic singing, I think. I'm not a Western classical, I don't have the wherewithal, but I think that's
also, that's thing in essence, do you think that the idea that it is straight comes from the fact that people wrote it down?
We don't,
It's very difficult to write all the dots for a trill.
I'd be really interested, again, there are so many studies that I think could come out of this that I haven't got time or intelligence to do, but I'd be really interested in someone looking at that, because I've just got Percy Granger's biography by John Bird, and it's made me go and look at Granger's actual writing this. And I have to say, Percy Granger, who collected Joseph Taylor, who I was just talking about doing melisma and decoration, incredibly ornate singer, and I don't believe he's the only one in England. That's just weird, you know. If you look at what Percy Granger, how his articulations on paper work of Joseph Taylor, they're there. He does do it. He does do the melisma. And he does make a good effort at notating the ornamentation. This is something I looked at this 4 or 5 days ago. I'm in a hotel room looking at Percy Granger's recordings, writings down of Joseph Taylor singing, and I'm getting goosebumps from it, because again, I'm a person who sings and listens to music and learns by ear, and so I have this music in my head, not necessarily in my eyes, and so, but then to see it written down, to see it expressed as I understand it to be sung is, I think, really moving. So that gave me a lot of respect for Percy Granger's methodology, because I think he was making an effort to get, if you like, style onto the page as well as just information.
Yeah, you said that for the first time. I think what you've done with the way you changed some of the tunes, you've taken took a little star out of it.
Right, yeah.
There's a little shade of and it's sort of ironed that out and put something fresh in.
And again, everyone has an agenda, but my agenda is that when all my life I've heard traditional English song, and I've thought it was exotic, interesting, complicated, you know, everything contrary to the sort of folk music's very simple sort of thing, that, you know, that isn't how I hear it. So something that really interests me is using, again, thinking about function and where, so yeah, I could do what I, you know, really, I could do what I want as a performer, because I'm the one deciding if I can make this work. But one of my interests is putting this music into communities, and so my next stage with the Seeds of Love was that I wanted to make it a group singing piece. So what do I do there? And again, I mean, it's pretty obvious and pretty basic, but I am just going to go through it because, you know, so there's the idea of maybe a creation of a chorus out of something. You were talking about the idea of the chorus, and yeah, I mean, we might not always want things to be chorus-led or about groups, but I wanted an arrangement. First of all, I was doing some group singing classes that I wanted to do, and also I tend to arrange things for community choirs, and I really enjoyed something that I can teach by ear quite straightforwardly, but also an arrangement that, if you like, contains something of the original in it. So it's not just me going, right, I'll just wham everything on there and make it a big production piece. It's kind of taking some of the things, again, that the song tells me and weaving that into hopefully something that's quite user-friendly as a piece of group song. So it's really basic, really, but all I did was, so I went from what's here, added that bit of melisma in, but hopefully not too much, and then I changed the last line into a refrain line. So you just sing again what I've just sung. So I think that's probably, for me, one of the least kind of intrusive ways of creating a piece of group singing. I could have composed a chorus, but I think, well, I know it would have been naff. But there are times when you might do that, you know. So I'll sing you a bit of Seeds of Love, as I do it now. So it goes, I sowed the seeds of love. It was all in the spring, in April, May, and in June likewise, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing. In April, May, and in June likewise, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing. My garden was planted well, with flowers everywhere, but I hadn't the liberty to choose for myself the flowers that I loved dear, the flowers that I loved dear, but I hadn't the liberty to choose for myself the flowers that I loved dear, the flowers that I loved dear. My gardener, he stood by, and I asked him to choose for me. He chose me the violet, the lily, and the pink, but those I refused all three, but those I refused all three. He chose me the violet, the lily, and the pink, but those I refused all three, but those I refused all three. I think you get the idea. The next thing that I did was that I actually arranged it, just a 3-part arrangement for that. So this is out of composing. I've done my composing-y bit, but this is now into the sort of arranging part of that. So I've put, if the tune's going, and again, this is for groups who wouldn't automatically necessarily go into harmonies, but I mean, if you're quite a music kind of folky group of singers, it's pretty straightforward where the shifts are. So there's space for improvised harmony, but for a group that isn't confident improvising harmony, it's quite nice to just take something, you know, that you can do. So I made a 3-part arrangement, and all I do is I harmonise that last little bit that's the refrain. So for instance, if you're interested in hearing it, and I do all this on GarageBand, so I just sing the tune, sing another part, and then sing another part, so I have my 3 parts. So the tune's going, let's say on the first verse, in April, May, and in June likewise, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing, is the tune. Should we just do that together? In April, May, and June likewise, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing. Gorgeous. So the first thing I do is I moves in a similar way to that tune, but starts somewhere else. So it's almost a little, I hesitate to use the word parallel, because nothing in harmony is ever exactly parallel unless you want some very weird sounds. But something that follows the scale that the tune is in, but starts somewhere different, but basically follows its movements. So if the tune's going in April, May, morning voice, sorry, in April, May, and in June likewise. My first harmony went in April, May, and in June likewise. Do you want to try that? In April, May, and in June likewise. Same melisma, same everything, but just following from the one instead of the three. Three is in April, and I think it continues in April, May, and in June likewise, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing. Do you know, have a go at one of those parts? Probably not both at once, like yourself. Between us, we can probably carry it. So choose a part and we'll have a look at those parallels. In April, is there in April, May, and June likewise, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing. Something like that, yeah? So third part goes, follows the tune to start with. In April, May, and in June likewise. It just stays there on the fifth, and it's kind of like a little gluey part. Everything else moves around, but that one's constant to all the shifts that are happening, if that makes sense. It's in all the chords that we need, so we can just stay there. In April, May, and in June likewise. Then you go down to 2. While small birds they do sing. And stay there. While small birds they do sing. And to finish. While small birds they do sing. On the third. While small birds they do sing. I'll sing that whole thing again. Join in if you want. In April, May, and in June likewise, while small birds they do sing. So you're staying there, it's only 3 notes. Da 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 da. While small birds they do sing. Try that. While small birds they do sing. And then, while small birds they do sing. Just those 2 lines. While small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing. So in April, May, and in June likewise, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing. Lower part goes. In April, May, and in June likewise, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing. Lovely, tune goes. In April, May, and in June likewise, while small birds they do sing, while small birds they do sing. I've totally fast-tracked you through this arrangement. It's just to show you how it comes, you know. Should we just try it? Give it a stab. There's no problem if it's not, you know, perfect, but it gives you, for you who are singers, it really just gives you an idea of where to go. But for a choir, it gives some parts that we quickly get quite a social song kind of sound to it, I think. So let's give it a go. In. So one goes in April, May, and in June. And the third one goes in April, May, and June, and stays there. In. 1, 2, 3.